हमारी है चाह कि हम भी स्कूल में जाए, सबके साथ जाए. Am I right, Ritika?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. But is it possible? Is it happening today? Are we just talking about something abstract, or are we talking about something that is actually happening on the ground? What are the challenges? What are the solutions? That is what we are going to talk about in the next 90 minutes or so. As our MC introduced, I'm extremely proud to have two very distinguished people to my left and right. To my left is Dipender and right is Ketan. I will be beginning talking about mainstream education for persons with disability and especially print disability. We are segmenting this entire day talking about different disability segments so that it brings in clarity as to how to include them into mainstream education systems. So this first part is going to concentrate on persons with print disability, mainly visually impaired. I'm going to speak about the inclusive mainstream schools. My friend Dipender is going to talk about mainstreaming the spatial schools. It's a new word, mainstreaming the spatial schools. And my friend Ketan is going to talk about how the resource center can play an integral part in making inclusive education a reality. So let's begin with a few questions. Most of you sitting here would be engaged either as a teacher or an administrator of some organization, preferably teaching the blind. Now just close your eyes and imagine a simple situation. A small child with blindness going to a mainstream school. It could be a government school, it could be a public school, it could be a private school. Imagine the teacher, the mainstream teacher, the non-disabled teacher in that school. How will she include this child in her classroom? We've seen this on a regular basis. The government, the new education policy, everybody talks about inclusion. But when we send our children into the mainstream schools, the first step is the school itself is not prepared. The school administration is not prepared because they don't know how are they going to include this blind child who looks different. How are they going to include him along with the rest of the classroom? Even if they get an admission, the teacher is absolutely lost. How will I teach this child? The child doesn't know mainstream script. The mainstream script is the script that all of you read, those who are non-disabled. How will I include this child in sports? How will I include this child in day-to-day activities of the school? How will he write his exams? Unless we have concrete solutions to all these questions, including children with blindness especially, in a mainstream environment is always going to be a solution where the children with blindness are going to be excluded in an inclusive environment. Do we all agree with this? Yes. Yes. And this is the reality today. This is the reality in most of the organizations that we come across in the mainstream schools and colleges. So let's break down these challenges part by part. Why are we facing these challenges? What are the reasons that after all these years, we are still facing basic challenges for including children with blindness into the mainstream schools and colleges? One of the biggest challenges is the teachers, the mainstream teachers have not been equipped to handle these children in a mainstream class. Because generally the perception is blind, braille. And because braille is not a mainstream script, we don't expect the non-disabled teachers in the system to know braille. You might argue there are special educators, what are they going to do? But we don't have that number of special educators to support these mainstream teachers. We should be realistic when we talk about India, such a large country. Look at the geography. And we have a few thousand special educators available to us. So when we talk about this realistic situation, it's very difficult to have one special educator per school who's going to go there, support the mainstream teacher in including students with blindness. So we'll have to find some other solution in which the mainstream teacher is able to connect with the blind child in her classroom. The second challenge, the child and the parent of a toddler, when he is getting admitted into the mainstream school, have absolutely no idea as to what is being done to them or what are they supposed to expect from the mainstream schooling system. No fault of this. For the simple reason, nobody has taken that little initiative to explain to the parent that your child, if given the right tools and training, can perform at par with any other non-disabled child in the mainstream school. Where should that information come from? Probably from the medical fraternity, because that's the starting point where all this story begins generally. Because when your child is detected that he is having low vision or no vision, obviously that's going to be told to you by an ophthalmic surgeon. What is the general advice from the ophthalmic fraternity? Normally that persons with low vision getters go to a low vision center. They are very well equipped, I must agree. Low vision centers have most of the required technology, magnification aids, video magnifiers, magnifying lenses, everything is there. So a child who has got residual vision will somehow be managed. But when it comes to a child with no vision, that is where there is complete void. There is no information coming from the ophthalmic fraternity as to how a parent should include this child or train this child to get into a mainstream school. At most, the child is pushed into a special school. And we all know that our special schools, most of them, I'm not saying all, most of them today are still very rudimentary when it comes to educating the blind. I'm not going to go into what happens in these special schools. We are all aware about it. We want to get over it. So when it comes to getting the right tools and the right training for this child, it starts at home. Simple things which a parent would be doing for a sighted child can also be done for your blind child. For example, if you are having a sighted child, the first thing that the child does around 2 years, hold a chalk or a pen or a crayon and start scribbling something, drawing something. Then when he goes to nursery, they teach him straight lines, sleeping lines, slanting lines. Why do we do that? Simple, to improve the dexterity of the child. His pincer grip improves. He starts understanding shapes. The same can be done for your blind child. There are simple tools available for that. Magnetic slates are available. They are readily available from Amazon. With a pen, you just draw on that and small beads will just pop out from that slate, and you will be able to put your finger and show it to your child as to what shape or what line you have drawn. Introduce him to different shapes, textures, the same way as you would do for your non-disabled child. Once you go through that stage, the next stage is, for a non-disabled child, you introduce him to characters. You show him videos, A for apple, B for ball. So what does that do? The child sees that shape A for my visually impaired friends, I'm gesturing what is a capital A like over here. So you just show him an capital A, you show him an apple, and you build that visualization. A is for apple. So what do you do for this blind child? For a blind child, something has to relate to that word A, because if he is born blind, if he has not seen anything in life, we need to show him a shape which represents A. So you can pick up those plastic alphabets which are available in most toy shops, where you can put your fingers on it, trace A, and you can show this is A, this is an apple, this is B, this is a banana. So that visualization starts building in the mind of the child. A looks like this, B looks like this, C looks like this. Why is this important? Just fast forward your child's life a few years, when he comes out of school, college, when he is required to sign, put his initials. In grade 10, children are expected to sign their forms. Grade 12, they are expected to sign their forms. Admission in the college, they are expected to sign their forms. What do our blind children do? Thumb impression. Why? Because nobody had taught them simple, basic alphabets. Imagine a person who has completed masters in his life, when it comes to signing, is giving his thumb. What a paradox. We normally consider people who put their thumb impression as illiterate. And that is what our friends are when it comes to putting their initials. They're illiterate. They're not able to put their 3 words on the paper. Once that starts happening, people start looking at people with blindness with a different mindset. He's not able to sign. He's different. Who has made them different? We have made them different. We didn't teach them. Our system did not teach them the basics. Let's go back to characters. Once we go through the character, what is the next step that a sighted child would do? You teach him small spellings. C-A-T, cat. R-A-T, rat. Now there are 2 philosophies here. The traditional philosophy says, at this point, teach him Braille. The new philosophy says, teach him keyboard. The moment you start teaching the child use of a standard keyboard, what are you doing? You're introducing him to the character. Since you showed him the character visually by putting it in his hand and explaining him the shape of A, B and C, now when he finds the key for character A, for example, and when he presses that, the technology is going to say A. That means you're building a correlation between the 3. He knew what A looks like. He now knows where to find A on a keyboard, and he is also hearing the sound of A from your technology. So you're building a visualization of that particular character. Once you teach him the keyboard, the same thing what you were doing with your non-disabled children starts with your blind children. C-A-T, cat. He finds C on the keyboard, A on the keyboard, T on the keyboard and writes cat. The moment he writes cat, it announces it as cat. That means there is reinforcement that you have written the right word. Why should we use a keyboard? Why should we train our children in using technology so early in life? Simple reasons. Our sighted children, all of you must be having children in your houses. If it's your own, it might be somebody else's, but you've seen sighted children. When they are very small, 2 years, 1.5 years, they pick up your phone. They start playing around with it. Somehow they find where is YouTube. Somehow they find where is their nursery rhyme stored on the phone. They play it, and all of us who are parents start smiling. My son is able to do this. My daughter, see, he's able to use my phone. Reverse that situation for the blind child. No, Baba, you don't come near this phone. Simple. You're not supposed to touch this phone. Why? Because we don't know that this phone is going to be the savior for this child. The Android phone, with its accessibility features, is going to be the best companion for your child throughout his life. For those who do not know about technology, the Android phone is the most affordable, accessible, and readily available device when it comes to persons with blindness for his reading and writing needs. We'll demonstrate this later. So when this child is exposed to typing, that can be done in two ways. Either you use a standard netbook, that's a small size laptop, or you could even use an Android device, because that's affordable to most families. Not all families would be able to afford a laptop for their child, and probably at that age, chances are there that child might even break that. So you can start with Android phones. We all know that typing on an Android phone is difficult. So simple, connect your Android phone with a USB plug, with an OTG cable, to a standard keyboard. And this keyboard is the same keyboard that you use for your desktops or anywhere. For sake of convenience, we also recommend that you should use compact keyboards. They are small size keyboards, not very small, not very big. That means that keyboard can fit into your child's bag as and when he starts going to the school. We also strongly suggest that the child should use the same keyboard over a long period of time. Do not keep on changing, because every keyboard has a different key size. The child has small fingers, so he needs to adjust his fingers to the keyboard. He needs to find different keys. And if you keep on changing the keyboards with different sizes, it becomes very difficult for these children. So that is again extremely important, that we take the same keyboard connected to the same device so that the child gets familiar with his own device. We all love our own devices. The moment we pick up somebody else's device, we find it difficult to use, even if we are non-disabled. So imagine a blind child. Just try and keep it simple. Do not mess around with his device. Keep it simple. Keep only the required applications on it. Don't clog it up and do a multi-usage thing on his device by 5 people using the same device. Try and avoid it if possible. Now when we come to the schooling part, the child has learned typing at home, because that's where you're going to start doing this, because that's a preparatory stage for this child to learn how to type at least few words, few alphabets. And then if you take him to a playgroup or a nursery or a kindergarten or grade 1, chances are there that the school management will be at least assured that yes, now we can introduce this child into the mainstream. Because you have now demonstrated that this child will be able to read and write the same way as anybody else. If the textbook of this child in a digital format is saved on this Android device or the laptop, when this child goes to the classroom and other children open their printed books, this child will open his Android device or the laptop, open the book, and read the same way as any other child. The difference is, here we are using the normal mainstream print for the teacher to see on the device what is the child doing, and the child will be using the technology, the screen reader, the TalkBack or the NVDA on the computer or the Android phone to listen to what is being there. We'll demonstrate this also for those who are new to this concept. So your first step of including the child in a mainstream school will be easier because you have, as a parent, you have demonstrated to the administrators, my child is ready for inclusion with this device. Take this a few years forward in life, when your child is supposed to start writing and writing his own exams. This is where the story gets interesting. Traditionally, blind students in mainstream or in blind schools they're expected to write their papers in Braille till a certain grade. But when it is in the mainstream, most of these children use scribes. We are all familiar, right? Writers. Now try and understand what damage you are doing to this child when you are making him dependent on a scribe. The child never develops the art of writing. Because he is not writing, his spellings are pathetic. This is the experience of most of us when we deal with children with blindness in the mainstream. Because the child has never written himself, he does not know what a normal formatting would look like when it comes to mainstreaming. Because all of us who are non-disabled, when we type, when we write, we make certain things highlighted, we make certain things bold to stand out, we use tables to tabulate and describe figures in a proper manner. All these things are alien to this child because he has never done that. And fast forward this to a few more years, when this child goes out for employment, even in the government sector, the child or the student, now he's not a child, he's a student, when he gets into the government sector, he uses a scribe for his written exams. He's not even writing over there. And when he gets the job, he has absolutely no skills for reading and writing digitally. And most of these government reserved jobs expect the candidate to be able to read and write digitally. And this is a fact that we are seeing many of our candidates who have been employed via the reservation route in government sectors not being able to perform. They are absolute non-performing assets for the government, sitting there doing nothing in life. And this is so sad to see. It's shameful to see that somebody else who's non-disabled has to bear the load of this gentleman because he is not working to his potential, because he was never taught how to work like any other person. Because he was only dictating answers, he was expected to pass at a less than average marks, and still he was considered to be fit for education. Look at our system. We need to change this. So we need to get rid of this word scribes from our system. How are we going to do that? Come back to our keyboard, come back to our laptop or the Android phone, and let the students type their own exams, type their own assignments, type their own homework. Let them become proficient in writing. It could be in any language, vernacular or English. Everything is possible on technology. There are no excuses. Let me explore one more fact before I hand it over to Sanjog for demonstrating what I have been saying till now. Most of our blind students in traditional schools do not take up STEM subjects, maths, science. Why? Because the system is not geared to do that. They are discouraged. You cannot take. We will not give you maths and science. You take music, you take yoga. What are you going to do with that in your career? Some people might excel in music, but not all can be Lata Mangeshkar and Kishore. So we need to be realistic that we need to give our students, it is the opportunity. If they are brilliant, if they are good at maths and science, give them the chance, give them the opportunity to study STEM. But how? Again, your savior is technology. With technology today, any person with blindness can read and write maths as comfortably as any other non-disabled person. He can write chemistry, read chemistry the same way as any other person would do. You'll ask me about what about practicals? There are guidelines for practicals. There are certified guidelines from CBSE, UGC explaining how you can use a lab assistant in the lab where the assistant who is sighted will just assist the person who is blind, not by doing everything, but only performing those tasks which the person is saying. Like for example, if I am blind and Dipendra is a sighted assistant, I'll tell him, sir, please pour 30 ml of H3O2 in the burette. So he'll pour. Pouring is not science. How much to pour and then what to mix with and what is the result is science. Correct? So all this is possible. Let me stop here. Let me have Sanjog demonstrate a few things to you which will add more clarity to what I have said. Over to you, Sanjog. Can we bring the lights, please?
Okay. Am I audible? Yes. So, initially, Sir spoke about children going to the school with their mobile phones. Now you will ask, how will they read using their mobile phones? So remember, we have Android phones with us, which are affordable, available and accessible. So on the screen, as you can see, for those who can see, there is an NCERT history textbook opened on the screen. Now, open your ears and close your eyes and listen to this beautiful voice.
In Europe, a QR code. Large numbers of people are crossing the desert in a single file holding flags of Germany and Hungary. The sky is full of angels looking down on them, and in the center is Jesus holding a cross. Fig. 1. The dream of worldwide democratic and social republics.
Now, if you have paid attention, because it read the text, the voice, which is called a text-to-speech voice, it read the text, and in front of you it is also highlighted by yellow color, but there is an image on the screen. It described the image as well. So it told us that there are people walking, they are holding flags of Hungary and I guess Germany, and there are angels in the sky and Jesus is holding a cross. So if you notice here, this image is described fully. So a person with total blindness can also enjoy books with images. Isn't this great? Right? Okay, moving on. With this same phone, the student will also be able to type. Let me show that quickly.
Top, enter text, edit box, unlabeled, button, unlabeled, enter text, edit box, unlabeled, enter text, English, US QWERTY shown, showing Samsung keyboard.
Okay, so if you will recall, Umair sir told us that we are supposed to connect a USB and USB keyboard with a help of an OTG cable. Just 50 rupees OTG cable and a 400 rupees keyboard. So in just 450 rupees, you are converting this Android device into a mini laptop. So instead of spending 40,000 rupees on a laptop, especially for a younger child, you can just spend 500 rupees and convert this phone into a mini laptop. So let me show you, let me type something. So I have a physical keyboard connected with this Android device. So let's see.
Capital I, keyboard hidden. I.
Okay, so I've written I am
Giving.
Giving.
Demonstration. Purple. Fest. 2, 3.
Okay, so did you notice the typing speed? The text-to-speech was not even able to read the characters. But let me show you what I have written.
I am giving a demonstration at Purple Fest 2023, beginning of field.
Yeah. So this is the whole sentence that I wrote. How much time I took? It just took 10 seconds. Right?
Selected text, clear text.
Now, suppose the child is interested in STEM subjects. So he goes up into his grades. Then introduce him to a laptop. Because till now, STEM is only accessible using a laptop. So let me show you how equations can be read using a laptop.
Speech mode talk, dynamic T, thorium, EDR lab dot. No next clickable toolbar region menu, main, all books link, all, presentate, thorium, clickable.
Okay, and what I'm doing is, I have quickly opened a book. Now I am going to a chapter with math equations. So given proper training, all the visually impaired can do the same as I am doing with the same speed.
Toolbar nav,
I am quickly opening the table of contents.
list with 5 items, toggle button not pressed, table of, index link, certificate, 1 human, image, Hindi math sample link.
Yep, see, I have navigated to a chapter with maths.
Main content, main landmark, frame, math sample, heading level 2,
Now,
link,
listen to the equation very carefully.
heading level 2 math sample, clickable m squared plus 4/5 m plus 8.
So if you notice, while reading the equation, it reduces the speed. So the regular text is read at a faster rate, the equations are read at a slower rate, and there are beeps at the beginning of the equation as well as at the end of the equation. We can also read this equation in detail. So for example, if a person doesn't know what is m square, so the student can go inside this equation.
M squared, math, m squared,
So this is m square. We can go inside this again.
in base, m,
So it says in base m,
in superscript, 2.
in superscript 2. So in such detail you can explain them the concept of maths, the base, the exponent.
Out of superscript, 4/5 m,
So this is 4/5 m. Now you might not understand what is this 4/5 m. So let us go inside.
4/5. In numerator, 4.
Now we understood. Oh, okay. 4/5 means in numerator there is 4,
In denominator, 5.
and in denominator it's 5. Right? The
And
same thing we can also write. So let me open Microsoft Word, our favorite writing tool.
taskbar, Word. Document page 1 section 1 blank.
The same thing which I showed you on the phone, we can do it. So we can type, for example,
M. My. Name. Sanjog.
yeah, my name is Sanjog, and
Blank.
let me type an equation. Okay, so I will type the same equation, m squared plus 4/5 m. So let's see.
Selected.
So I have brought an equation editor. So let's see, m.
M. Caret 2 spade plus space m and numerator blank and denominator and numerator 4 m squared plus the and denominator 5 m blank.
So I have written m squared plus 4/5 m. Can you see that on the screen? Yes or no?
M squared plus 4/5 m.
Yep, it read in the similar fashion. So you can write as complex equation as you want. You can also write chemical equations here in Microsoft Word. And when you write in Word, you being sighted, your teachers being sighted can see it, I being visually impaired can read it. So this initiates inclusion. There is nothing to be done here. Just print this. Imagine a student writing an exam. Just print this and submit. Right? So, yeah, you go.
So ladies and gentlemen, for further demonstration, in interest of time, we'll just halt here. Visit stall number 65 where you'll find Sanjog again over there, and he'll be more than happy to demonstrate all this what he did here. Or you can visit the suction stall at 4344, or you could visit the
Speech
old
mode
GMC
off.
building and see the entire gamut of technology which is demonstrated by Ketan and his
Yes.
team from XRCBC.
Yes, including the lab experiment.
Everything. So whatever I have said is all here,
Yes.
right?